Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, and thank you so much for your kind words about my case of man flu. I wasn't sure if you'd be able to tell, but I've had a few emails saying your voice sounds a little bit different, Neil. Is it bunged up? Do you have the sniffles? Well, yes, on all counts. But the show must go on, and today we have the inspirational Valeria Kogan on the podcast, and she is the founder of Agritech startup called Fermata, which is a next-generation farming tool that uses AI-based technology to provide farmers with precise monitoring of greenhouses. And as you all know, I love exploring different areas of how technology is transforming our world and areas that we don't automatically associate with tech. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Riga in Latvia, where she's waiting to share her story today. So, a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
My name is Valeria Kogan. I'm CEO and founder of Fermata. This is an Agritech startup that develops solutions for precise plant monitoring. So we have an AI that controls the states of the plants and alerts the farmers in case something goes wrong with these plants.
I love that, and I'm really excited to dive a little bit deeper into the world of agri-tech because it's something that I'm quite curious about myself. But before we go there, can I ask that you share your origin story and where your passion for tech came from and what put you on this path you're on today?
Well, I've been passionate for tech like forever, I would say. So I was 10 when I started coding and just decided to join like a group of kids who were learning how to code. And it was like a big hobby of mine, I would say forever. And once I was choosing like my professional career and was choosing the university, I was thinking that I'm also very much in love with science. And I was also a big fan of biology and biotech and medicine. I was even thinking of becoming a doctor, but then realized that I'm not that brave. But I somehow wanted to stay close to that. So I was studying applied maths in applications to biology and medicine. Then I did my PhD in bioinformatics. And I was always between programming and science and technology. And I was then when AI became that popular, this happened actually while I was studying. And I was also very much into AI, and I was leading teams of AI development in several biotech startups. So my professional background is more in biotechnology. And then everything with agriculture happened really accidentally with me. So I'm as far from nature as possible, I would say. So I'm just like a very, very like a kid who grew up in the city and I don't know, never seen a cow or things like that. So I was really, really far from that, but very close to medicine and close to the ideas of, monitoring patients and how we collect data about the patients, how we help doctors make decisions using artificial intelligence. And then friends of mine shared the challenges that people have in agriculture in producing plants. And actually, I realized that this is a very, very similar task. So actually, the plants also feel sick. It's also important to understand that something's happening as early as possible. It's important to create some decision-making support system to help the professionals make the right decisions based on the data that we collect to protect the health of the plants. And a lot of technological ideas and business ideas that are already implemented in medicine can actually be applied to agriculture. This is what I'm currently doing because I see huge opportunity here because the market is large. There are much less players here than in medicine. And also there is no regulation. So we don't have any FDA of government or a Ministry of Health that is caring about the technologies that we develop. So we have a lot of freedom to try this and that. And also the development is much closer, being like it's a frustrating thing when you're working in biotech, because if you have some technology or invention, it takes years for this to come to market and to really generate value. And as a researcher, you feel sad because you don't see, and sometimes you never see how actually good things that you have developed helped anyone. And here it's really cool that everything that comes to our mind, we immediately test and get feedback and see that we really generate value to the people.
Great story and a great journey you've been on. And that path obviously led you to Fermata, which is a next generation farming tool that uses AI-based technology to essentially provide farmers with precise monitoring of their greenhouses. And I believe it prevents 30% of harvest loss and can reduce the monitoring time by 50%, which is incredible. But can you just set the scene and tell me a little bit more about those problems that you set out to solve with this tech?
Yeah, so when we decided to, with the team of my friends who joined me on this path, when we thought that we'll try to do something in agriculture, we started analyzing different tasks and challenges that the farmers face. And eventually we narrowed down our focus, because as a startup, you need to keep always focus, right? And not to try to do a lot of things at once because your resources are really limited. So we decided that the most important challenge that we could help with is that a lot of harvest, up to 40% of harvest, depending on the country, on the region, on the type of plant, is lost because of diseases. We are currently talking about greenhouses because this is something we have most experience with. And the reason for that is the process of controlling the plants. So you have greenhouse, if you have ever been to a commercial one, this is something that is shocking actually, because these are like jungles, these are huge plants. This has nothing to do with how you can imagine tomatoes grow because of your, grandma's small greenhouse. But these are really huge buildings with really large plants, which are very, very hard to control. And all this control is done manually by the workers. So people just walk along this greenhouse, look at the plants, look at the flowers, look at the leaves, and see whether there are some dots or some other issues that they can detect, and then call the professional agronomist to help make the decision what that is and how to act. And this is really, really inefficient, because there are some construction of greenhouse where you can even not be able to look at every plant because they are grouped together and you just can't come there, can't walk into that area. And this is one problem, that people just cannot control visually all the plants. And the other thing is that people, the workers, they even become sources of these diseases, because it's very hard to control the cleanness of all the clothes that they have. So, and they can contaminate plants. So we decided that this is a very important challenge, and this sounds like something that AI can help with. And we had a pretty long path of trying different solutions with different hardware setups. And eventually we ended up with a product where we install cameras in the greenhouse, and these cameras collect images of every plant. And then our artificial intelligence automatically processes these images, identifies what if something is wrong with the plant on the image, if there is, some infection or some insect or something like nutrition deficiency or too much water with this plant. And then if we identify that this is something important and that we need to alert the farmer, then in his app, he sees that this kind of case was detected in the greenhouse. And because of our app, they can spend much less time, and eventually we hope no time, on monitoring the plants manually, because our artificial intelligence we already have proven does it more efficiently than the workers, because we can see all the plants and we can react immediately and not wait a couple of days till someone comes to the area. And there are some diseases that spread really, really fast. And so first of all, we save the time of the workers. And the second is that we save the losses due to diseases because of really fast reaction on some issues that we have detected.
And we will have startup founders listening all over the world. And with this Daily Tech podcast, I do try and share a few stories that will inspire people that are going through similar challenges. And I know, for example, that you've encountered a few fundraising problems along the way. So can you share your experiences with the unequal demand for technologies in Europe, Eastern and Western, and indeed the US too?
I would say that in the beginning we had it's chicken and egg problem between fundraising and defining your product, because if you don't define your product in the right way, you cannot raise money. If you do not raise money, you cannot involve the experts that will help you define the product. So I wouldn't say that this was just a challenge of fundraising. It was like the global issue, that we didn't have enough expertise in our team. We were really good tech guys, but that's it. And it was very hard for us to get and also it's very important to understand that agriculture is a very conservative industry. So when you come to some grower and say like, hi, I can do AI, let's try to do some kind of pilot. He's saying like, what a stupid idea. I don't need any kind of AI. I know everything by myself. So it's really hard to find the right people to start building your reputation, to start involving them into improving your product and eventually raising money for some good idea and a good prototype. So for us, it was really challenging. And our original idea was building actually a robot for monitoring plants in greenhouses. And we didn't manage to raise money for that. We didn't manage to get through some kind of competitions. And even as we weren't recruited, chosen for the competitions, we couldn't get exposure to the experts who could tell us why is this a bad idea and how we can change it, how we can apply our technologies and our knowledge and expertise in the best way to solve the challenges that the farmers have. But I would say that the main thing that a founder of a startup needs to keep in mind, and I'm telling it everywhere to everyone, that the only advantage that you as a startup have compared to any corporation is your flexibility, because you have much less money, you have much less people, you have absolutely no reputation, no one trusts you. And the only benefit that you have compared to these large, experienced, wealthy guys is that you can be really, really flexible to any changes and any ideas and something that you feel in the air, to change your product accordingly and make it constantly better. So we tried to keep, to catch any idea, any thought, any kind of feedback that we got from the experts we could reach, to adapt our product. And it's very tough thing for a lot of people, because as a founder, you really love your original idea, but it might be wrong. And 99% that it is wrong. And you have to be able to drop this idea and then create a new one and kill it again and kill it again. And this is the right strategy, to always try to kill your idea and eventually find the one that survives. So that probably the advice that I would give. And I think that this strategy that I was not personally thinking about my ego and my love to the product and being able to be open to ideas of the other people actually helped us to survive, at least up until this point in our history.
And there's also a huge focus on sustainability and the environment and looking after the land better and being more economical with that. And it is expected that the crop and livestock monitoring applications will hold a significant market share from 2020 to 2025, I think the figures show. But can you expand on the ways to avoid increasing monitoring time in traditional industries by leveraging technology like you guys are doing?
I would say I was last week, participating in, there was a World Agritech Summit in London. And one of the key topics that everybody was discussing is that we need, at least in Europe, to reduce the amount of use of chemicals the farmers need to reduce the amount of used chemicals by 50% by 2030, which is not that far away. And of course, and when the people talk about chemicals, this means not just insecticides or pesticides. They're talking about fertilizers, for example. And these things need to be reduced too. And of course, for farmers, this is a huge challenge, because they don't want to. Okay, we all want the earth to be healthier, for the products to be healthier, people live longer, and blah blah blah. But not by the price of your own production, So, okay, we want the world to be better, but why should I pay with my harvest for that? I think this is a pretty fair question, right? And the technologies like ours helps the farmer not to lose his harvest because of reducing amount of chemicals. Because we help, if you use less chemicals, that means that the control over the plant should be much more precise. This might mean hiring like a lot of people, just looking at the plants and controlling them and making sure that everything is fine and reacting immediately if something goes wrong, or setting up technologies that help do it without manual involvement of people. And this is why I see huge potential in technologies like ours, and also in the other technologies that lead to sustainability, because obviously all the industry is changing and is trying to be more environmentally friendly. And we are one of those who help to go through this change without harming the farmers.
A quick timeout from the interview to mention Hirect, the sponsors of the Tech Talks Daily podcast this month. So recruiters, are you or your business spending too long in your email and waiting for responses? Did you know that with Hirect, you can skip the headache of traditional hiring? You can view resumes, exchange contact info and interview candidates in seconds. You can also get curated candidate recommendations that fit your job requirements. You can chat directly with your ideal candidates, accelerate your hiring process 10 times faster than those painful traditional ways. And best of all, it's a totally free download from the Apple and Google Play Store. So download Hirect from the Apple or Google Play Store, give it a try, and let me know what you think. But now, back to today's interview. And of course, the success of any new technological solution is often based on avoiding that garbage in, garbage out scenario. So can you tell me a little bit more about how enhancing data quality throughout the ecosystem and also the potential use case for data in agriculture if you get that balance right?
So with the data in agriculture, I think the story is the same as it was in medicine maybe 20 years ago. And this is thing that everybody's talking about, because there are at this point no standards for transferring data from one system to another. So there are a lot of people like us who develop their own technologies that collect data, analyze this data, but it's very hard to exchange this data between different countries, different companies, because we store data in our own format, in our own structure that we choose, we decide which way to proceed. And in medicine, the huge change with that happened, I think it was in the 90s, when special protocols for storing and exchanging data was developed. And of course, this is not like a commercial initiative to do that. It was like governmental in the United States, when eventually there were developed protocols which everyone currently uses in all countries. Any app that develops some medical data analysis uses the same standards of data. I hope that something like that will happen in agriculture, and this will help us to create a synergy between different solutions that people develop. This is one thing and one challenge that is obviously in place. The other challenge is, of course, the quality of data, which you mentioned, because even if we are collecting like imagery data and everybody understands that this is like golden mine and we have a lot of data, it's very important, but the quality of this data is the main question. And also with agronomy, the point is that this is a very creative job, being an agronomist, because from the image of the plant, you should make the right decision. And this is not a straightforward task, It's not like this kind of dot means exactly this. And all the agronomists have their own opinion on what exactly does mean any like appearance of the plant. And for us, it was a huge challenge to make a high quality data set, because also the amount of highly qualified people is low. So we, with our data set, we collected as a concilium. So there were like 3 agronomists that were labeling every single image, because we wanted to somehow get rid of mistakes that one single person can make. And eventually we have built a really, really high quality data set, and we are constantly growing our data set. We have even like a program to how we teach people who label our data set for like 6 weeks before we onboard them into our company and they start working with the data. So definitely this is a very, very important thing. And any company that is working with AI have to take care of their data.
Well, I seem to be reading more and more about agriculture technology at the moment. It seems to be a thriving scene. And I'm curious, as someone working right in the heart of this, and you have been doing for some time, are there any exciting trends in agritech that you're seeing right now?
Well, agritech is really different. So there are different trends currently in the industry. We're the part of robotics automation trend in the greenhouse. So let's let's make all the routine tasks done by the technology. Also, there are trends in new construction of the greenhouses. I think a lot of people heard something about vertical farms. So there, the challenge is that especially in Asia, how to use the amount of space that we have in the most efficient way. So let's not grow plants in traditional way. Let's have shelves where we can grow some plants which are not that high, like lettuce, basil, and things like that. And a lot of technologies are going around there because you need some special light, and a lot of lighting companies develop solutions for that. You need some special control of the environment there. And there are a lot of companies that build these vertical farms in just commercial buildings to make commercial buildings actually a greenhouse. And this is also one trend. There are a lot of trends like in the biological part of agriculture that is related to GMO or the ways to eliminate use of pesticides and using some specific insects that fight other insects in the greenhouse. So a lot of people are thinking of how to make production of the agricultural products in a more environmental friendly way. So how to use more efficiently space, how to use more efficiently water, which is also very important, and how to reduce amount of chemicals which is used currently by the farmers.
Well, another thing I always try and do on the podcast is try and share stories of tech scenes and startup scenes outside of Silicon Valley. And you're talking to me today where you're living in Riga in Latvia. So is there anything that you could share about the startup scene in that region? Is it quite an exciting space at the moment?
Well, I'm living between Riga and Israel currently. And with Israel, of course, I think everybody knows that this is so we Israeli call ourselves like a startup nation, and because we believe that we are, and a lot of things are going on in Israel. And I think that Israel is actually a great place to start your startup because it's, I think, very important for a startup to be in competition and not to get too relaxed because you are in the area where there are less startups and you can feel like you're the goddess, and then meet the real life and be really disappointed by it. So I think that exposing yourself to more competition is a good thing actually to evolve faster. As for Latvia, this is a place where a lot of fintech startups are developing. And I think that this is the most important focus of the country right now, even though some biotech is also growing and expanding here. But I would say that fintech probably is the most important thing here and what government takes care about. And also here, there is a lot of support from the government if you want to fund your startup in Latvia with taxes and with grants that you can get here. So I believe that this is also a good place to fund your startup.
And what's next for Fermata? I mean, where do you go from here? Is there anything that excites you about the road ahead? We've already got one eye on 2022. Is there anything that you're looking forward to?
Yes, we have actually great plans to expanding ourselves to different markets and also to slightly changing our product, because recently what we have realized is that people are seeking not just for technology to control their plants, but also for support in making the right decisions. And what we're doing right now is that we're building the whole expert ecosystem around our technology to help farmers connect to the expert through the data and data analysis that we develop, and be closer to the knowledge that is outside of the greenhouse. So we see ourselves, as a kind of telemedicine service. That's why I'm always saying about medicine, because we get inspired a lot by this industry. And this is the trend that we see for us to develop further.
I love that. Now, as somebody that travels a lot between Latvia and Israel, I expect that you've got a pair of noise-cancelling earphones to keep you sane on those constant flights. But a question I'm going to ask you now, is there a song or piece of music that inspires you, gets your head in the zone when you're on those flights, or has just inspired you throughout your career? What's your song and why? And we'll add that to our Spotify playlist.
I went through your Spotify playlist and find there all the inspiring songs that I've been thinking about. But, I think that important thing for a founder is that it's like constant up and downs, and you cannot always motivate yourself just to be in this up state. Sometimes you're just down and you feel really depressed, and you cannot you don't know what to do with your own expectations about yourself and expectations of your investors and colleagues, and there is a huge pressure. And I sometimes feel like I should go and be a math tutor, because this is the only thing that I really know how to do in my life. and in these moments I think it's also important to support yourself with music too. And for me, this kind of song is Pink, All I Know So Far. So,
I absolutely love that. Great choice and great reasoning and story behind that too. So I'll add that to the playlist. But for everyone listening, if they want to find out more information about anything that we've talked about today, there are so many different domain names out there. Could you point them in the direction of your website and the best way of contacting your team?
Yes, so our website is fermata.tech. And we have an info email there, and I received all these emails. So if you want to work with us or just get in touch, please feel free to contact me. Always happy to help other struggling founders.
Excellent. Well, so much I've loved about our conversation. Yes, talking about this next generation farming tool and using AI-based tech to provide farmers with precise monitoring of their greenhouses. But more than anything, it was your story that brought everything to life, and even washed down with a great tune too. So thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
One of the reasons that I record this podcast every day is to get people thinking about how technology is transforming areas you don't associate with technology. And I think sometimes supermarkets have made us lose touch with how the food that we eat is produced. And there are so many potential use cases for data and technology in the world of agriculture, especially when you zoom out for a moment and look at the massive data volumes of mapping, variable rate seeding, soil testing, crop monitoring, crop rotation, that all must be stored and managed correctly, as successful farming relies entirely on it for assessing the conditions and improving regular operation. So if you frequent the world of agriculture or agritech and have a story to share, or you have a question you want to ask me or the guest, or a pitch to come on the show, whatever it may be, keep those messages coming in. techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram at Neil C. Hughes. And my website, if you'd like to work with me, is techblogwriter.co.uk. But it's time for me to have another Lemsip hot lemon now and rest my podcast voice before I return again tomorrow. So thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.